Hello and welcome to my channel, and welcome to Tag Tuesday, in which I discuss the Booktubers Snooker Book Tag. The tag calls for the following. In snooker, the balls have to be potted in strict colour rotation, so the first balls that have to be potted are the red balls. Name a book that made you see red. For this prompt I've chosen The Western Wind by Samantha Harvey. This pretentious novel with its outlandish and ridiculous analogies was both laughable and made my blood boil with indignation. See my rant in the info cards above. When all the red balls have been potted, the next ball that must be potted is the yellow ball. Yellow is the colour of summer, so name a book that has a summer theme or that you want to read in summer. For this prompt I've chosen The Darling Buds of May by H.E. Bates, the first book in the Pop Larkin Chronicles. Pop Larkin is irrepressibly good-humoured, positive and full of joie de vivre. His adventures and his family of daughters, Zinnia, Petunia, Primrose, Victoria and Mariette, and his son Montgomery and his common-law wife Ma, are altogether delightful, irresistible, sensual and uplifting. A perfect summer read. The ball that must be potted next in snooker is the green ball. Green is the colour of spring. Name a book that represents spring. For this I've chosen The Mating Season by P.G. Wodehouse, because in spring a young man's fancy turns to love, and this is what this story is all about. At Deverill Hall, an idyllic Tudor manor in the picture-perfect village of King's Deverill, man-about town Bertie Wooster is doing a good turn to his friend Gussie Finknottle by impersonating him while he enjoys 14 days away from society after being caught taking an unscheduled dip in the fountains of Trafalgar Square. Bertie is of course one of nature's gentlemen, but the stakes are high. If all is revealed, there's a danger that Gussie's simpering fiancée Madeline may turn her wide eyes on Bertie instead. It's a brilliant plan, until Gussie himself turns up, imitating Bertram Wooster. After that, only the massive brain of Jeeves, himself in disguise, can set things right. Well, the course of true love never did run smooth. The next ball that must be potted in snooker is the brown ball. Brown is a sombre colour. Name a book that has a sombre or serious theme. For this I've chosen The Way of All Flesh by Samuel Butler. Written with great humour, irony and honesty, The Way of All Flesh exploded perceptions of the Victorian middle-class family in its radical depiction of Ernest Pontifex, a young man who casts off his background and discovers himself. The awkward but likeable son of a tyrannical clergyman and a priggish mother, and destined to follow his father into the church, Ernest gleefully rejects his parents' respectability and chooses instead to find his own way in the world. It critiques Victorian-era hypocrisy as it traces 4 generations of the Pontifex family. It represents a relaxation from the harsh religious outlook of Calvinism. Butler dared not publish it during his lifetime, but when it was published it was accepted as part of the general revolution against Victorianism. George Orwell wrote, The Way of All Flesh is a great book because it gives an honest picture of the relationship between father and son, and it could do that because Butler was a truly independent observer, and above all because he was courageous. He would say things that other people knew but didn't dare to say. And finally there was his clear, simple, straightforward way of writing, never using a long word where a short one will do. Based on Samuel Butler's own life and published posthumously, it offers a scathing indictment of Victorian bourgeois values as personified in 5 generations of the Pontifex family. Butler's satire centres on Ernest Pontifex, an orthodox young man who suddenly sees the falseness of the rules and expectations forced on him by parents and teachers. an epiphany which leads him to renounce the moral, religious and social values he once held. The book is highly didactic and reflects the author's own prejudices. In my opinion, in rejecting the strict Calvinistic religious outlook of his parents, he should have allowed for the fact of the false interpretation of Scripture and not to have thrown out the baby with the bathwater. A strangely compelling, almost coming-of-age novel, which is autobiographical in parts, the book relates the story of the repressed youth of Ernest over the years from childhood to middle age. In later life he finds some settled sense of self and thereby stops burdening himself with overwhelming feelings of guilt. The transition is achieved, at least in part, by allowing the expression of or development of his sense of humour. The novel has philosophical themes at its core, and the question of the day, primarily religion and science, were in conflict in the Victorian period. Much is made of this and the hypocrisy it generated. Ernest suffers poverty and a descent down through his social sphere as he rebels against his parents' strict orthodoxy and selfish, priggish and cruel attitudes to him as a boy. Even the independence of life at university does not manage to bring him peace, and he is throughout an extremely gullible character, full of mental self-chastisement where none is due. However, his inner life is so well expressed and analysed in the book that the development of his character becomes intriguing, and as the reader you continue to hope he will find a life that suits him and brings him pleasure. Whilst the reader wishes him well in all the adverse, often self-inflicted changes in his life, Ernest would probably never have attained peace without his godfather. A figure on the periphery at first, his godfather takes the young man's interests to heart and also acts as the custodian of the comparatively vast fortune which Ernest inherits through his trusteeship. As the book is autobiographical in many ways and posthumously published, the passages devoted to criticism of church, science and authorship publication are often lengthy and didactic, even when this is the very aspect Ernest purports to argue against. Nevertheless, I read the book over a short period, enjoyed most of the meanderings of Ernest's internal life, and thought and found the whole entertaining. The next colour to be potted in snooker is the blue ball. Blue is the colour of sadness. Name a book that is sad or melancholy. For this prompt I have chosen Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. When Emma Herriot marries Charles Bovary, she imagines she will pass into the life of luxury and passion that she reads about in sentimental novels and women's magazines. But Charles is a dull country doctor, and provincial life is very different from the romantic excitement for which she yearns. In her quest to realise her dreams, she takes a lover and begins a devastating spiral into deceit and despair. The pink ball has to be potted next in snooker. Pink is a happy colour. Name a book that made you feel happy, uplifted or cheerful. For this I have chosen If Only They Could Talk by James Herriot, the first of his 8 books of memoirs as a Yorkshire country vet. It is witty, self-deprecating, nostalgic, warm-hearted, joyful, sweetly sad and ultimately uplifting. And there are 7 more volumes to be enjoyed after this one, which makes me very happy. The final ball to be potted in snooker is the black ball. Black is the colour of depression or despair. Name a book that has a dark or depressing theme. For this I've chosen Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. Jude Fawley is a rural stonemason with intellectual aspirations. Frustrated by poverty and the indifference of the academic institutions at the University of Christminster, his only chance of fulfilment seems to lie in his relationship with his unconventional cousin Sue Bridehead. But life as social outcast proves undermining, and when tragedy occurs, Sue has no resilience, and Jude is left in despair. Hardy's portrait of Jude, the idealist and dreamer who is a prisoner of his own physical nature, is one of the most haunting and desperate of his creations. Jude the Obscure is a dark yet compassionate account of the insurmountable frustrations of human existence, which reflect Hardy's yearning for the spiritual values of the past and his despair at their decline. A foul in snooker will cost you 4 points. Award 4 people by tagging them. I'm going to tag Brian at Bookish, Summer Dawn, Mark of Richardson Reads, and Sue of Sue's Book Nook. So that's all, folks, but I'll be back soon with another Booktube video.